Good evening. Okay, this time we are talking about, when people decide they're going to try to work a little part-time, um, obviously it's often really good for people when they've been disabled and off their feet most of the time and having to really lay low because of not feeling well. Oftentimes it's pain. It could be mental and physical. Or one or the other. But in any event, I think it's always great when people want to try to get out there and earn a little and get productive. And it's really good for self-esteem and meeting people, just getting out of the house, and you put a few bucks in your pocket. And of course, as we have in other videos, there is a ton of things to just beware of. So you stay within the rules. It is a definite myth to think that you shouldn't be working part-time within your limited means, including accommodations, or else you're not disabled. Not true. SSA encourages disabled people to get out there and make a little. Um, they just obviously have to have rules because if it, ends up, showing that someone is not unable now to work gainfully or is working substantially and gainfully, which means not that minimum we're talking about or minimal, then obviously, disabilities for people that can't do that. They can't work substantially. But if they're working unsubstantially, it can be fine. So you just always want to be very clear. Um, if you're going to be an employee as a W-2, that is the most transparent and least concerning way to do it because it's through a third party. If you're working self-employed, you have to do a little bit more diligence when it comes to keeping your paperwork. So you can always back up what hours you worked, how minimal they were, what your pay was. You've got bank accounts that show what revenue came in that you collected from customers, or checks paid by a client if you are a gigger. So let's say you're an Uber driver gigger. Uber is basically your client. You are a self-employed person, and we call them giggers, right? Most of us have been giggers at some point, even before gigger was popular. Um, so either way, it can be done, but you just have to always be paying attention and staying within those rules. If you don't know the rules, I highly urge you to learn them before you do it. And keep, it probably doesn't need to be more than a page of notes to keep it all straight, but you have to do it because if you screw it up, you're going to eventually, potentially lose your disability. And it's still at a time when you cannot work full time. So you'd be really screwing yourself. But otherwise, it's completely doable. Many of my former clients, um, work part-time within their limited means as a disabled person. And it adds to the family quality by having, that extra $1,000 a month, coming into the household. It can be for savings later. It can be for retirement, depending on where they're at. Everyone's individual. But the biggest first question you have to know for sure. And for a lot of you, this is going to be something that it doesn't even count because you already know that you're on Social Security disability. But for those of you that are unsure, and I say this because people mix up SSI, SSD, they think it's all SS. They think one's disability and one's not. It's amazing how much confusion there is, and probably because the acronyms are so similar. Um, but if you're on SSI and you need to find out before you do this because it makes a huge difference. There will be no trial work period for you. You could still do it, and there's great reasons to do it. And I have that in other videos as an SSI person to work a little bit, but you have to be on top of it even more because there's going to be offsets each month. You're still going to bring home more than you would if you weren't working, but there is a detraction from the SSI amount. But, and just as a quick little reminder, working when you're on SSI in a little limited accommodative fashion that you can do despite your disabilities can get you, can feasibly, assuming you remain disabled, change you from SSI to Social Security disability. Yes, you can. So keep that in mind. I was speaking to someone recently and it was very unclear whether the person was getting SSI or SSD. Didn't really know the difference. And the amount received each month seemed to be in that $900 range, which really Could be SSI or it could be SSD. It could be a lower level SSD, or it could be one of the fuller amounts, reaching the max of the SSI. So what do you do when you don't know? A couple of things you can think about. Do you get a 1099 at the end of each year? That would tell you that it's SSD, meaning Social Security Disability and not SSI. If you're getting two checks, that could be that you're getting both SSI and SSD, but that would mean that your SSD is less than this year, like $914 for SSI. It's below the SSI amount, which is why you're getting a second check from SSI, because you had apparently applied for both, and one fills up the gap. But if you're only getting one check and you have a 1099, then it's going to be Social Security Disability, because you don't get a 1099 when you get SSI. Okay. Another way to figure it out, are you on Medicare or are you only on Medicaid? Now, if you're within the first couple of years of being on Social Security Disability, you're not going to have Medicare. So this is not an end-all be-all answer in those cases. And it is possible some people are on Medicaid and Medicare. But if you are, then you are on Social Security Disability, because Medicare only comes with Social Security Disability, not SSI. SSI often comes with Medicaid, or whatever the name is of your state medical assistance welfare program. So that will tell you SSI, Medicaid, SSD, which is the Social Security Disability, would be Medicare. And again, if it's within the first 2 years of SSD, you might still be on Medicaid if your income is low enough, because your Medicare hasn't kicked in yet. All right. You can call your local office and ask them. Yeah, that's one way to do it. And sometimes you might want to call twice and make sure the answers are conform with each other, just due to some mistakes that come out. And while you're at it, you may as well ask for your established onset date. When did you win your case? When did they find you disabled? You're not necessarily going to need it for this purpose, but it was needed for this particular phone call I took today. So I'm throwing it out there. It's a good date to know. Anyway, so when you think you're going to be potentially working, or maybe buying into a business that you're not really going to be working because you're disabled, but you had some money and you wanted to invest it. In terms of that, when you're accumulating an asset that earns money, or any asset that can be sold to support yourself, if you're on SSI, that's going to be something you probably can't do in the way that you wish to. SSD, absolutely you can, because SSD only concerns itself with money you earn from your work efforts. It's all about being disabled, not about being poor. So that won't be such an issue. But again, make sure you know whether you're on SSI or SSD. I have one or more videos from back in the day describing the differences between the two, but they're less important right now than the fact that you need to know which one you're on, because with SSI, you're going to have a lot more rules to follow for working part-time than SSD. Although SSD has everything is very meticulous. You have to be organized. And being organized can be literally 60 seconds a day of being organized. It's not a lot. One notebook can do it for you, with a couple jots a day. But it's something that you gotta pay attention to. All right, I hope that helps, guys, because I love it when I see people being able to work and collect their benefits when they're disabled and better their lives. And when people tell you can't do it, I've heard law firms say it. Not true. Yeah, you're taking a risk if you're not careful, for sure. But if you remain disabled and you're still treating and taking care of your disabilities medically, so that there's all that evidence behind you, so when you have your CDR, you can readily prove that you have not improved or improved much that would potentially cause you to be able to work full time at a job that exists in substantial numbers in the economy. Working part time can be a Huge blessing. Okay. So SSI or SSD, know what you're on it. Which one you're on before you even apply for a job. All right. Bye, guys.